They claim two near misses, don't they, with their still fairly recently launched space station. Were they complaining about as you describe it, the satellites which were in low Earth orbit or the higher Earth orbit?
Yes. Yes.
The lower.
The Chinese space station orbits between 210 and 280 miles above the surface of the Earth, which means, of course, that they're crossing into the ring of satellites which are there. Whether or not they're in the exact same position is another argument, because if you've got these very small satellites and they're a tiny ring going around the Earth, Elon Musk says, well, there's plenty of space out there, and to shove all these things in, you could have billions of satellites. I mean, in theory, he's right. In practicality, he's not, because in theory you could put roads anywhere in the world and drive cars anywhere, because his argument was the number of cars that you have on the Earth, number of satellites in space. It doesn't work that way, because obviously you can't drive cars over mountains and you can't drive them through the oceans. So therefore you have to have a narrow band of where you can drive your cars. It's the same in space. For satellites to be practical, you need them in particular orbits, and that's so they can actually communicate with ground stations. So in reality, you can only put your satellites in a limited number of usable orbits, which of course changes the game plan then from the fact you can put billions up there to actually a few. And this is where the Chinese have actually complained, which is actually quite interesting. It's interesting the Chinese complaining about it, because they've often launched things without communicating with other people, and even brought stuff back down to the ground without controlled descent, which has caused controversy. So this is the pot calling the kettle black in some areas. But having said that, they have a good point. And it's something I've argued myself with various groups for many years and been laughed at for the fact that we need an international body, probably through the United Nations, of all the major space agencies, Europe, China, Britain, United States, Russia, all getting together around a table to organise a special committee which organise and control, to a certain degree, the regulations of launching things into space and putting them into orbit. Because sooner or later, we're going to have a really big disaster is going to take place.
You're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the game, aren't you? Was it a month ago, 6 weeks ago, the International Space Station, they had to make for their escape pods because the Russians blew up an old satellite, and there were bits of debris heading towards the space station.
Absolutely right. And then there needs to be proper international control now over this. I mean, I know a private company like Musk. I mean, I like Musk. Don't get me wrong here. I think Musk has done some fantastic things. He's put us probably 30 years ahead of the game now because of the way he's driven things, and he's been brilliant for that. But at the same time, he has to be tempered with responsibility for the international community and other nations who want to go into space as well, because there are a lot of new space players coming on the game now. India's going to be playing a major role in space. The Arab nations are getting together to launch vehicles too. So there's going to be a lot of people flying stuff into space, and there does need to be some level of organisation. I mean, it's like when airlines started. Airlines, sort of did willy-nilly, and then there had to be international controls to have air routes and to control it, and it works extremely well. It's very efficient, and people move along with it. And I think that's what we now need for the space, for space control this way. I think this is absolutely essential now, because otherwise we're going to have a real disaster on our hands. And that concerns me when you've got space stations like the ISS, you've got the Chinese, you've got the Russians planning to launch their own space station at some point, and Japan probably looking at doing something themselves in due course, and certainly India are. So you're going to have this clutter of people up there without any coordination. And it's like the motorways. You have to have rules on the motorways. Otherwise, I mean, you remember when the first M1 opened up, when they allowed you to go as fast as you like, the chaos that was breaking out. You had to have some sort of control. And we're not trying to curb back things. We just need a bit of common sense now to be applied into the game plan. Because Musk, to be honest, as a private company, is really, they say he's hogging the space lanes. To be honest, he's so far ahead of the game at the moment, his could be the only company that can do anything at some point, and he will be the one with the stuff up there dictating the terms. And I don't think the international community want that.